Hey everybody! How are you doing? I have a guest with me. Tell him, hey Juju! This is my girl Juju. And this is my kitty. And you see who's behind me? That is Barney Fife. Lawman Barney Fife off of Andy Griffith's show. And yes, I am filming from another location today because it's raining outside. And I've had a lot going on today, so I'm late doing this video. But this is going to be chapter 2 of our Hank the Cowdog book. Tell him bye, Juju. Tell him bye. I'm going to be in another video. Juju is actually named after a book character in the Skippy John Jones books. And she has a brother, and his name is Skippy. And this kitty came from Miss Hasty whenever last year. So look how big she is, though. And let's see if I can show you. You look on her right arm, right here, on her right shoulder. It looks like a heart. She will not want to cooperate. But there is a place, and it looks like this is like a heart. See it? You be sweet. You tell everybody hello. You tell them hey. Tell a sweet girl. Yeah. Tell my mama's girl. All right. So, you ready to get it started? Chapter 2. Quills, just part of the job. So remember, when I left off yesterday, it was Hank, and there's Drover over in the background, and he thought he was jumping on a predator, and he thought that it was what? He thought it was coon, and it turned out to be a porcupine. So now we're on chapter 2 about porcupine quills. It was kind of a short fight. Coming down, I seen them quills aimed up at me and tried to change course. Too late. I don't move so good in midair. I lit right in the middle of him, and bam! He slapped me across the nose with his tail. Sure did hurt too. Brought tears to my eyes. I hollered for Drover to launch the second wave, but he had disappeared. Porcupine took another shot at me, but I dodged, tore up half an acre of brush, and got the heck out of there. As I limped back to the house on a pin-cushion feet, my thoughts went back to the murder scene and the evidence I had committed to memory. It was clear now. The porcupine had nothing at all to do with the murder because porcupines don't eat anything but trees. Drover had found the first set of tracks he had come to. He'd started hollering about coyotes. I had been duped into believing that little runt. Yes, it was all clear. I had no leads, no clues, no idea who had killed that hen. What I did have was a face full of porcupine quills, as well as several in my paws. So I limped up to the yard gate, as you might expect. Drover was nowhere to be seen, of course. I sat down beside the gate, and I waited for Loper to come out and remove the quills. A lot of dogs would have set up a howl and a moan. Not me. I figured that when a dog got to be head of ranch security, he ought to be able to stand some pain. It just went with the territory. So I waited, and Loper didn't come out. Them quills was sure beginning to hurt. The end of my nose throbbed, felt like a balloon, made me awful restless, but I didn't whine or howl. Pete the barn cat came along just then, had his tail stuck straight up in the air, and was rubbing along the fence, coming my way. He had his usual dumb cat expression, and I could hear him purring. He came closer. I glared at him. Scram, cat. He stopped, arched up his back, rubbed against the fence. What's that on your face? Nothing you need to worry about. He rubbed and purred, then reached up and sharpened his claws on a post. You sure look funny with all those things sticking out of your nose. Well, you're going to look funny if you don't run along and mind your own business. I'm not in the mood to take any of your trash right now. He grinned and he kept on coming. Started rubbing up against my leg. Decided to ignore him. Looked the other way and I pretended he wasn't there. Sometimes that's the best way to handle a cat. Sometimes let him know that you won't allow him to get you stirred up. You have to be firm with them cats. Get him the slightest encouragement and he'll try to move in and take over. Pete rubbed and purred. I ignored him, told myself he wasn't there. Then he brought that tail up, flicked it across the end of my nose. I curled my lip and growled, and he looked up at me. He did it again. It tickled my nose, made my eyes water. I had to sneeze. I tried to fight it back, but I couldn't hold it. I gave a big sneeze, and them quills sent fire shooting through my nose. Kind of inflamed me, don't you see? And all at once, I lost my temper. I made a snap at him, but he was gone. Over the fence and into Sally Mae's yard, which is sort of off limits to us dogs, even though Pete can come and go as he pleases, which ain't fair. With the fence between us, Pete knew he was safe. He throwed a hump into his back, and he hissed. Sss. What was I supposed to do then? Sing him a lullaby? Talk about the weather? No, sir. I barked. I barked hard and loud, just to let that cat know that he couldn't get me stirred up. The door opened, and Loper stepped out on the porch. He was wearing jeans and an undershirt, no hat, and no boots, and he had a cup of coffee in his hand. "Hank! Leave that cat alone!" I stopped and stared at him. "Leave the cat alone?" Pete grinned and walked off, purring and switching the tip of his tail back and forth. I could have killed him. I whined and wagged my tail and went over to the gate where Loper could see my nose. He looked up at the sky, took a drink of coffee, swatted a mosquito on his arm, looked up at the clouds again. I whined louder and louder and jumped on the gate so he couldn't miss seeing that old Hank, his loyal friend and protector of the ranch, had been wounded in the line of duty. "Don't jump on the gate," he yawned, went back into the house. 20 minutes later, he came out again, dressed for the day's work. I'd waited patiently. My nose was really pounding by this time, but I didn't complain. When he came out of the gate, I jumped up to greet him. Know what he said? "Hank, you stink. Have you been in that sewer again?" And he walked on down to the corral. He didn't even see the quills in my nose. Do you remember how I told you yesterday that Hank likes to take a bath in the sewer? Well, he did, and so now his owner said, "You stink." At last he saw them. We were down in the corral, and he shook his head and muttered, "Hank, when are you going to learn about them porcupines? How many times do we have to go through this? Drover never gets quills in his nose." Well, Drover was a little chicken, and Loper just didn't understand. Nobody understood. He got a pair of fencing pliers out of the saddle shed, threw a leg lock on me, and started pulling it. It hurt. Oh, did it hurt. Felt like he was pulling off my whole nose. But I took it without a whimper. Well, maybe I whimpered a little bit, and we got her done. Loper rubbed me behind the ears. "There. Now try to stay away from those porcupines." He stood up, started to dust off his jeans when he noticed the wet spot. His eyes came up, and they looked kind of wrathful. "Did you just do that?" I was well on my way to tall timber when he threw the pliers at me. "I couldn't help it. I didn't do it on purpose. The quills just got to hurting so bad that I had to let something go. Was it my fault that he had me and the leg lock and got in the way? Make one little mistake around this ranch, and they nail you to the wall." I laid low for a while, hid in the post pile, and nursed my nose. It was about 10 o'clock when Sally Mae discovered the murdered hen. So here's a picture of Loper taking pliers and pulling those quills out of Hank's nose. So when he did, what happened? Hank let something go. What was it? He used the bathroom on Loper. And so he threw the pliers, and he said, that's when Hank saying, "I couldn't help it. I had to let something go." I'm going to go ahead and read another chapter, okay? And let's see how long, or maybe I'll read some pages into the next chapter, okay? Chapter 3 is called An Enormous Monster. So I debated for a long time about what to do next. Should I hide out, play it safe, or go on down to the chicken house and get blamed for something that wasn't my fault? Curiosity got the best of me, and I trotted down to see what was going on. Drover was already there when I arrived, wagging his stub tail, trying to win a few points with his loyal dog routine. I walked up to him, and I said, out of the corner of my mouth, "Thanks for all the help this morning. I really appreciate it." I think he missed the note of irony, because he said, and I mean with a straight face, he said, "Well, that's okay, Hanky. It wasn't nothing." Dang right it wasn't nothing. Loper was kneeling over the hen, studying the signs. Sally Mae stood nearby, looking mighty unhappy about that dead chicken. Loper pushed his hat to the back of the head and stood up. His eyes went straight to me and Drover. Only when I glanced around, I noticed that Drover had disappeared. It was just me, standing in the spotlight. Hank, if you hadn't been out there barking all night, you might have prevented this. Why do you think we keep you around here?" I hung my head and tucked my tail. "Do you have any idea how much it costs to keep you dogs around here? Seems that every time I turn around, I'm having to buy another 50-pound sack of dog food. That stuff's expensive." Well, maybe this is not the time or the place to argue the point, but just for the record, let me say that co-op dog food is the cheapest that you can buy. I don't know what they make it out of, hulls or straw or sawdust, anything the pigs won't eat, and then they throw in a little grease to give it a so-called flavor. Tastes like soap, and about half the time it just gives me an upset stomach. The point is, I wasn't exactly eating the ranch into bankruptcy. Thought I ought to throw that in to give a little more balanced view of things. So that was what was going on. Was they have another murder, another hen got killed, and so now Loper is fussing at Hank, saying, if you hadn't been barking all night, then maybe you would have prevented this. And he says, "Why do we keep you around here?" It's because they expect Hank and Drover to keep things like this from happening. All right, back to the story. Loper went on, "We can't afford to keep you dogs around here if you're going to let this sort of thing go on. Everybody has to earn his keep on the ranch. I don't want this to happen again." What did he suppose I wanted? Sometimes I just don't understand him. Oh well. So he picked up the dead chicken by the feet and he carried it down to the trash barrel. I got to admit that I watched this with some interest. I sensed it occurred to me that there wasn't much any of us could do for that dead chicken. The more I thought about that chicken dinner, the more my mouth watered. I couldn't get it off my mind. I like chicken about as well as any food you can name. It has a nice clean taste, except for those feathers. Feathers are pretty tasteless if you ask me, and they kind of scrape your throat as they go down. Sure was hungry for some chicken, but I decided against it. Wouldn't look too good if I got caught eating the murder victim after all the trouble I'd already gotten into that day. I tried to concentrate on the scene of the crime. I studied it again, went over the ground, and I sniffed it out. Nothing. No clues, no tracks, no scent. Could have been a coyote, a coon, a skunk, a badger, even a fox. But there was one thing I was sure of. It wouldn't happen again. Not while I was in charge of security. Not as long as I could still stand up and fight for this ranch. So I saw Drover peek his head out of the machine shed. "Get some sleep, son. Tonight we throw up a double guard and we could get ourselves into some combat." We slept till dark, and when the moon came up, we went out on patrol. Made several laps around the headquarters. Everything was quiet. Off in the distance we heard some coyotes, but they weren't anywhere close. Must have been after midnight when Drover said his feet hurt. He wanted to go rest for a while. I left him in front of the chicken house, and I told him to sound the alarm if he saw anything unusual. I went on down, checked things at the corral, made the circle around the place, and ended up back at the chicken house about half an hour later. I thought I'd drop in unannounced and check on Drover, make sure he was taking care of business. As I sneaked up, I could see him in the moonlight. His ears were perked up. He'd take about 2 steps and then pounce on something with his front paws. Then he'd take 2 more steps, pounce again. He wasn't paying a lick of attention to the chicken house. A guy could have driven a truck into there and loaded up all them hens and been gone before Drover even got the news. I walked up behind him. "What are you doing?" He screeched and headed for the machine shed. I called him back out. He came out looking all around with big eyes. "Is that you, Hank?" "Uh-huh. What were you doing?" Nothing." It was then that I saw the toad frog jump. "Playing with the toad frog? On guard duty? When we got a murder running around loose?" He hung his head and went to wagging that stubbed tail of his. "I got bored, Hank." "Sit down, son. Me and you need to have a serious talk." He sat down, and I marched back and forth in front of him. "Drover, I'm really disappointed in you. When you came to this ranch, you said you wanted to be a cowdog. I had misgivings at the time. I mean, you didn't look like a cowdog, but I took you on anyway, and I tried to teach you the business. Can you imagine how it breaks my heart to come up here and find you playing with the daggum toad frog?" He sank his head lower, and he started to sniffle. "If you had gone any other line of work, playing with a frog might be all right, but a cowdog is something special. You might say we're the elite. We have to be stronger and braver and tougher than any brand of dog in the world. It's a special calling, Drover. It ain't for the common run of mutts. He started crying. Drover, there's one thing that keeps you from being a good cow dog. What is it, Hank? You're worthless. Oh, no, don't say it. It hurts too much. But it's true. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to teach you. I've tried to be a good example. I know, but it hasn't worked. You're just as worthless today as you were the first time I saw you. Oh, you're just a chicken-hearted little mutt is what you are, and I don't think you'll ever make a cow dog. Yes, I will, Hank. I just need some more time. Nope. Duty's duty. I got no choice but to let you go. He broke down and sobbed. Oh, Hank, I got no place to go. No friends, no family. Nobody wants a chicken-hearted little mutt. Give me just 3 more chances. Can't do it, Drover. Sorry. 2 more. Nope. 1 more. I paced back and forth. It was one of the most difficult decisions of my career, and I didn't want to rush into it. All right, 1 more chance. 1 more dumb stunt, and you're finished. And I mean forever. Now dry your eyes, shape up, pay attention to your business, and concentrate on being unworthless. Okay, Hank, okay. He started jumping up and down, going around in circles. You won't be sorry. No more frogs for me. No more. I'll guard that chicken house and give my life if necessary. That's the spirit. I'm going to make you the rounds. Again, if you see anything suspicious, give me a holler. So I started off on my rounds. I left him sitting in front of the chicken house door. I was down at the feed room checking for the coons when I heard him sound the alarm. So there goes Drover again, and he is sounding the alarm that something's happened. So I'm going to stop right there. That's about a chapter and a half, and I will finish up that chapter tomorrow. And so that was actually chapter 3. So we read all of chapter 2, and chapter 3 is called An Enormous Monster. So, like I said, I'm going to stop, and what I was going to go ahead and tell you was that the reason that, besides it being raining, I didn't tell you exactly, where this room was. This is Mr. Byrd's, man cave, basically, with the exception of that picture right there. And I told you that was Barney. Well, Barney Fife is, like I said, a sheriff's deputy on Andy Griffith's show, which is one of my favorite shows. So I've had that picture for a long time, and like I said, it stays back here in the man cave. And if you look here, there's a Florida State picture here, and I'm sitting on a bed, and the bed is for, somebody can sleep back here if we have a guest or something. That we have television back here, and have an ironing board, and a lot of things kind of get stored back here sometimes. So I had to kind of find a place that was quiet because I have some people home tonight, and I also have a special guest, and I will share her with you tomorrow. And no, it's not Juju. So, Juju heard her name. Tell Juju, tell you bye. Tell him bye, Juju. Tell him bye. Tell him bye-bye. Say bye-bye. See you tomorrow.